I'm Nate Kokernot. Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to talk about introverted feeling, which is the second alphabetically of the functions that I'm going to kind of unpeel the layers of today. Before I do so, I do want to point out that somebody caught a mistake in yesterday's or the last episode when I was describing the back seat of the FE function, and I misidentified the types that would sit in the third seat, the 10-year-old, and the fourth seat, the 3-year-old. So basically, I was not decoding the letters right, which I haven't actually mastered that really quickly. I have to take my time with that little equation every time. And I happen to learn something myself about the decoding, which is that basically extroverted feeling exists in the back seat for anyone with a T and a P as the last two letters. So in the case of the third seat, the 10-year-old function, it would be the ENTPs and the ESTPs that have this function in the third seat. And the fourth seat, the 3-year-old, would be the INTPs and the ISTPs. So now we're going to go on to talk about introverted feeling. This is the lead function in my car. This is my driver function. And like I say, it's my water if I were a fish. When my ex-wife first told me about it, I was just like, duh, isn't that life? Isn't that just how things work? It's really so ever present. Your first function, your driver function, it's so ever present in you that you take it for granted. You don't really even try to understand it, because what's to understand? It's kind of like consciousness understanding itself. It's hard to do, but I'm going to give it my best shot to sort of explain what my personal experience with introverted feeling is, and a little bit more from what Joel and Antonia shared in their podcast, which I will share in the more section below, called Why the World Needs Introverted Feeling. So to start with, I believe that my introverted feeling is what gives me sort of a front seat view of how emotions, how thoughts, and how behaviors all seem to intermingle and cause and effect relationships. In a way, I could say it's mindfulness in action, FI, being able to look inward and observe sort of neutrally what's going on in there. And I feel compelled to do that all the time. I'm always looking inward to process external events that have taken place. And I tend to take the insight about myself and then extend it outward towards others as like an imagination. This could possibly be true for them too. I'm not, I think that there's a great respect for subjectivity in introverted feeling, which means that I don't assume that it's true for them. I just stop at it's a possibility that it works for them the same way it works for me. But I think that introverted feeling, there's like both a protecting and an honoring of my own subjective experience that I extend as well to others, so that I don't want to encroach too much on their subjective experience. It's almost like a deep respect for free will that comes from introverted feeling. The other thing that I notice, and that Joel kind of spoke to in his podcast, was that we are unapologetically authentic when this function is in a mature place. That, again, when I described yesterday the difference between extroverted feelers seeking peaceful conditions in the external world so that they can feel peaceful themselves, introverted feelers are more focused on feeling peaceful themselves so that we can extend that peace to others. Okay? And being authentic, which means just being in complete alignment with my behaviors, my emotions, and my thoughts, at all times as an ideal to aspire to, basically gives me peace of mind simply because I don't have to try to remember all of the different masks that I've worn for different occasions with different crowds. You know, how we often seem to put on different masks for different roles in our life. Like we've got the father role, but we've also got the buddy at the bar role, and we've got the co-worker role at work. We put on all these different masks, and introverted feelers are probably the least suited to putting on those masks. We'd rather be ourselves and kind of want everybody else to just show up as themselves too. So I think that FI, introverted feeling, is self aware enough that they check their projections at the door. In other words, at least as a Course in Miracles student who is also an introverted feeler, I'm constantly taking note of my own emotional reactions to things and remembering that if it got a rise out of me, then I basically created it. It is mine to work on. It's basically my side of the street to clean up if I actually feel an emotional escalation. If I don't, that means basically it's not my issue to deal with, it's the other person's issue to deal with. And that immediately, that that realization immediately flips me into compassion and empathy mode, as in, okay, this person is making a call for love, and if I am in a place where I can actually meet that call for love, that's what my role is to do. So I think that introverted feeling really understands the complexity of human emotions and just what a crucial role our thoughts play in our emotions. That basically they're the only single level at which we can have some causative effect on the emotions that we experience is through gaining more mastery over our thoughts. Personally, I think there's a great desire not to be the squeaky wheel in the crowd on the part of introverted feeling, meaning I want to take responsibility for all of my emotional regulation and don't want to take responsibility for other people's emotional regulation simply because I don't think that it's my responsibility. I hope that makes sense. I hope that doesn't come across as too discompassionate. It's more just like an understanding of how emotions work, that my emotions are always about me and your emotions are always about you. And so in order to be self-contained, I need to take full responsibility for all of my emotional dysregulation and understanding the cause of it and correcting the cause of it. And I'm not going to step over into other people's business, basically, or their sovereignty and do that work for them. That's kind of like emotional labor that as a INFP, I don't feel like it's my role to do. Basically, being self-contained is what my role is. So then, as I've said before, some of these functions, well, all of these functions, in fact, can also be utilized by the ego. And I think usually if you have the function in your third or your fourth seat, the back seat of your car, then it's most likely being used more by the ego than it is by the higher self or the Holy Spirit. And I was thinking about what kind of manifestations that would create, and the first thing that came to mind is just good old classic navel gazing. We could call it solipsism. That's another word for it, where an individual becomes so entirely focused on their own experience that they basically block out the world, become sort of the most extreme sort of introvert. And I know with a lot of firsthand experience just how tempting that is. As an INFP, I often think, well, There's a line in A Course in Miracles that says, your sole responsibility as a miracle worker is to accept the atonement for yourself. And when I go out and I try to communicate stuff and I feel like I've been misunderstood or I didn't get through to people, I often just feel that need to retreat back to that. I just need to accept this for myself. That's all that really matters. Whether I extend it to anybody else or not isn't as important as that I accept this, and that I am willing to accept this truth. And so, yes, I think introverted feeling can often lead one sort of away from the world if they're not careful. They need to sort of flex those extroverted muscles once in a while, take those risks and get out there and speak to people, engage with the world. It is certainly seen as incredibly selfish by a lot of people. I think extroverted feelers especially might look upon introverted feelers and just think, yes, they're completely self-focused, absorbed with their own goings-on, internal goings-on. I can just say personally, I can't speak for any other person with introverted feeler because I'm not inside their head, but I can say that, yes, I am always focused on my inner peace, but that the motivations or the intentions behind that are not so selfish as they appear, that it's really just going on that logic that I have to have peace if I want to share it. If I don't have peace, I got nothing really worthwhile to share. So it isn't for entirely selfish reasons that I focus on basically that self-containment. I would be curious to hear from readers or from listeners if they have introverted feeling in the backseat of their car and they're getting a sense of what the function means, if they could kind of chime in and say what it's like in their experience, maybe as an INTP or an INFP. So I wanted to go through the list of personality types that have FI somewhere in their stack, just like I did with the extroverted feeling yesterday. Starting with the driver's seat, FI would be in the driver's seat for an INFP like myself or an ISFP. In the second seat, the co-pilot, which is, I'll remind you, if you're one of these types, this introverted feeling is really the feeling you want to come into understanding more and then nurturing it in yourself, really kind of breaking the loop between the two introverted or the extroverted functions that sandwich it on either side and have it show up for you more in your day-to-day life, because it is truly like through learning this function and how to be expressive of this function, that is how we teach others, according to the MBTI understanding or philosophy. That's what we have to give, and so it's basically through learning it ourselves that we give it away. And so that would be for either ENFPs or ESFPs. Now, in the 10-year-old seat, behind the co-pilot, the 10-year-old is going to be using it from time to time, but not really feeling very confident about it, which means that you will feel good when somebody else gives you some validation that you performed it well. You'll get like a knock of pride from that, but in general, it's not something that you feel very comfortable with in yourself. So that would be for either the ISTJ or the INTJ, having it in the 10-year-old position. And then finally in the 3-year-old, which is, I'll remind you again, kind of the default. If everything else has failed, we go to our 3-year-old, and we're usually doing it out of a sense of desperation, which means a lot of pressure, and it usually doesn't go very well. And just a reminder for people with either seats, either back seats, that you don't want to be hard on yourself around this. You want to develop it, yes. You want to be well-rounded, but beating yourself up about anything doesn't actually propel you forward on learning that thing. So I'm not recommending, and neither are Joel and Antonio, that you give yourself a hard time when you kind of fail at this function. So the fourth seat would be the ESTJs or the ENTJs. So we can basically say that in the decoder ring realm, if you have a TJ in your type, then you have extra introverted feeling somewhere in the backseat of your car. Okay, that's it for today. I hope that you're enjoying these lessons on the MBTI and that you'll like and subscribe to the channel. And I want to wish you all a wonderful day full of blessings and miracles. And I will see you again next time.